Thank you for tuning in to this podcast. My name is Lucy Arrington, and I am your host of Destination Loading. Here we hope to help you evolve from where you are to where you want to be. This segment is about relationships and the discussions between men and women and how we handle those relationships from beginning to end. I hope you enjoy. Thank you. Mr. Bradford, thank you for joining me today to share about share your perspectives on relationships, right? So tell the audience a little bit about who you are and your relationship status.
My name is Eddie Bradford, 44-year-old black male. Just kind of free, independent, mobile male.
Okay.
And I'm sure the response to that generic comment is probably indifferent, but however, that's that.
So Mr. Bradford is known for his generic comments and not was overly sharing information. So I am so honored that he is taking the time to open up a little bit to the world. Imagine that. So Eddie, Destination Loading recently sat down with a few women and we talked about relationships and the subject was single and saved or not, because all the people that were present are saved, they're Christians. However, everybody has to have and desires a successful relationship. So we talked about some things, fornication, divorce, and how do other women connect and maximize what we can do in supporting one another without being jealous of one another. So we kind of wanted to hear, what do the men think, right? So what, from a man perspective, tell us, how do you go about choosing the right mate? And when you know it's the right mate, have you ever experienced a person who was saved and they wanted to practice celibacy? And how did you deal with that?
The communication part of that is not a problem. Where the problem begins or enters the playing field is when a male accepts that request and wish by way of the woman, insecurity set in based off how she may perceive the male of its attraction or popularity or things like that. And she rolls with it for some time, and only she knows, or those ladies know, what that time frame is before it becomes present. And once it becomes present, then that's when the innuendos and chaos begins in the home or within that relationship.
So when you say it becomes present, exactly what is it?
When the insecurities become present, like he may be questioned about if he's seeing an ex, if he's seeing someone else, if he's entertaining, because remember I spoke on the attraction that drew her to him was based off his physical appearance and or his popularity.
So he knows how to work the room and may potentially have no problem satisfying that area that's not taking place in that relationship. Okay, that's good. That's good. So you're saying,
but
go ahead.
When you say he doesn't have a problem fulfilling that area, that's kind of insinuating that, the way I hear it, is that an insinuation that because she's not willing to and he's accepted it, he's okay because he's going somewhere else. That's not what I was saying.
No,
Because
right.
a man can accept the celibacy wish and road that she is willing to accept along the relationship. And if he's into her and he's has a long-term vision
Mm-hmm.
or any positive vision, once again, I do understand that everybody involved are saved individuals, and we know that repentance is a daily thing. So if he has a foundational core of value
Mm-hmm.
and he's willing to accept that because of what he sees in her,
Mm-hmm.
then as vague or nonchalant as he communicates his acceptance, then she has to transfer her fear over to faith and understand that
Mm.
he is
Mm.
what she asked of him.
That's good, Eddie. I'm glad you went deeper on that because I wasn't insinuating that. I was saying I was supporting what you said about that's when the tension may arise in the relationship if that's the female's thought process. But that is so powerful. So she has to implement her faith. Wow, this is good. This is
See,
good.
those things go along with that conversation of her desire stems more between her and God and
Mm,
less than her and the mate.
come on.
Because you're looking for the mate to have the answers and to fulfill your
Ooh.
desires on something that you have had a discussion and a commitment to God on.
Oh my goodness, Eddie Bradford.
So you fault, and this works both ways. He faults her or she faults him for something that those individuals had a conversation with God about.
Mm-hmm. And
So
I'm
you
glad.
take that person out of the equation of who's accepted to fulfill that role based on the road in which one is choosing to travel.
I'm glad you said it goes both ways because that's true. Because sometimes the man, it could be the man who's committed and he's trying to protect the temple, right? And the woman can be the person that she's struggling to work the deepest with that or whatever. That's her challenge. So thank you. That's some
And
good tea right there, Bradford.
and with the men, consider this, and it's not often considered or looked upon as men have this type of vision or spiritual relationship. If that man is been married and is coming out of divorce where he know that he wasn't a faithful man and
Mm.
he's choosing the right path in dating because he wants to make sure that the next one lasts,
Oh wow.
then he may take the role of asking, do you accept me being celibate? And she may say yes, but it's I think it's a fair assumption to say that statistically women are more likely to have a maintenance man than a male to have a frequent partner. The male that has a frequent partner is probably not as consistent as the woman who accepts a quote unquote maintenance man.
Well, that's another whole nother podcast because I'm gonna need to see where you getting those statistics from, bro. What? You just trying to be
So
controversial. I ain't playing with you,
no,
Eddie.
I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not. Because okay, so I don't want to say your average male, but your typical male perception base
Okay.
will find himself in a single stance. He'd be free and he choose who he choose
Mm-hmm.
based on who chooses him or who's available.
Mm-hmm.
A woman who's single and seeking or waiting to be sought has a frequent maintenance man, as I guess I've heard, but it's the same person.
Mm.
So women are more consistent with their outside non-committal partner
Oh,
than a man would
okay.
be when they're both in a single phase of life.
Okay. I mean, that
And
that
this is just
aligns,
based off of what I hear. Not, I'm
right.
not a woman, so I wouldn't know.
And if I go back in my mind to pre pre I've been saved since I was 12, but pre ministry and pre this level of walk in my life, because I've been celibate for almost 6 years. So I can say that might be a true statement, right? Yeah, I can kind of understand that.
We
So
have the Family Feud, that one, so I won't say that it's 100% true or not. It would kind of be like, out of 100 people, 45 probably said yes, 20 probably said I don't want to touch that, and the remainder probably said no.
I'll buy that. I'll buy that.
Yeah.
So tell me this. So Eddie, you have been married before,
Yes.
and you're divorced. So how do you how have you changed your dating practices, if at all, um, after what you learned in your divorce, learned about you?
From pre-married to post, uh, I am not as I'm not as binding and overlooking to things that I'm not comfortable with as I was to
Mm,
save my marriage,
mm,
or to continue peace at what I thought was peace.
got it. So that's like you don't force a connection by overlooking certain things,
It's not
or
the force
sustain
the
a connection.
connection. It's not. It's more of, if I don't like red, I'm not gonna say I like red just because I want to keep the peace. If I don't like red, I'm gonna find a tasteful, tactful way to communicate my dislike about red on you.
Mm, that's good, Eddie. So that's growth. So how did you get to that place? How did you arrive at that place?
When you realize what you tried still didn't work,
Mm-hmm.
and you feel like it wasn't respected,
Mm-hmm.
and you were taken advantage of, then you get to a broken sense of bitterness place
Mm-hmm.
that you say, you know what, I accepted that. And it's a little unfair. It's a little unfair because oftentimes we, male and females, tend to victimize
Mm.
the new because of the old.
So you're carrying some baggage.
And for a long time I was in denial of me having that perspective, or me being of that individual, until a few hit or miss relationships, or a few, you don't see something until you get back
Mm.
what you've given,
Mm.
but you don't see it until you have matured. So if I had not grown in certain areas, outside. See, life gives us experiences that show us outside of the experience in which we gather. So if I'm speaking to kids and I see something there that's equivalent to what took place in my marriage, God had that way to show me where I would focus and pay attention to see what he'd been trying to show me and I missed before.
Mm.
So he'll take your common ground to give you answers in your question ground.
You know, um, you are really shocking me with some of your shares, because we cut up a lot, our relationship, we act silly and joke, and you going way deep, and I appreciate that. And I think it's gonna bless some people, especially hurt and broken people, because and I can attest to what you just described, because it causes you to really deal with the person in the mirror and evaluate. I mean, because you have to guard what you allow to be poured into your spirit, so you can't allow others to determine certain attributes about who you are and what you are. You have to come to that realization, like you said, through your faith. But as you grow spiritually, as I grew spiritually, I began to look back over my life and say, oh, wow. For example, I shared in the previous podcast, in my marriage, sometimes when I look back, and sometimes some of the feedback I received, I thought at that time was him being mean, but really he was really trying to look out for me. Now the delivery could have been better, maybe sometimes, but the meat of what was being shared was really to protect me. And so I had to grow to that. And I think what you're sharing is that the communication, it requires personal growth, your faith, and effective communication to transition into the type of person and relationship you want to have and maintain. Is that a?
And can I touch on one thing that's teetering at me that needs to be said, and we don't have to spend much time on it? Generational curse is the most overlooked, underrated disease that haunts us. And I say that because, so before marriage, I was the man that said, I don't need no counselor, ain't no counselor, can't nobody tell me about me. Doing premarital counseling and through my marriage and after my marriage, I learned to accept and appreciate counseling, to understand counseling is the reason that I'm here today to be able to speak on this platform. Now, where I was originally going with that is here. Because of you, the woman, having a particular appearance and know-how of keeping yourself or presenting yourself to the public, because you are a woman and because of the area you may have grown up in, you, because I'm talking to you, but you as in general as a woman, then there comes an assumption. The assumption that you know how to cook. with that same thing, vice versa, the assumption comes that I know how to cut grass. Because you are a woman, because I'm a man, contrary to our upbringing and raising, I can't fairly assume that you can fulfill certain roles if you've never been taught. And this is a detriment to a lot of marriages because we place people on pedestals and we stereotype what we assume to a person to know. See, if we don't know the true background between a person's parents, two things. I could know that your parents were married for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But out of your parents being married a long time, that could have been an existence, or that could have been a nurturing, loving experience. The existence says that you may be bitter and defensive in some ways that you feel your mother should have left long before. The other part is you saw love and you saw conflict resolution
Mm-hmm.
between your parents, that's why you're willing to stick and learn uh in and endure during your marriage. The
Mm-hmm.
man, the man may have never experienced uh
Wow.
a committed relationship, conflict resolution, and only thing he knows is when things get bad, run. But if you don't know through time, this
Mm.
is why time and dating is important. I'm not a fan of, I'm a fan of love at first sight, but I'm not a fan of rushing into anything, because one thing that I did learn in counseling, it was pointed out to my ex-wife. The pastor said, "Have you ever seen Eddie mad or upset?" She said, "I honestly haven't." He said, "You may want to do that. Not to make him mad, but meaning you all may need to spend a little more extensive time dating to see each other in different realms to decide
Mm-hmm.
if this is something that I can deal with lifelong."
That's good.
These are the things that generate the underlying conversations of divorce. And the only thing that we tend to talk about is he or she was responsible, irresponsible, cheated, or wasn't affectionate, or didn't do this by the kids. Well, go back to the responsibility part.
Mm-hmm.
If he never saw a male to know the role prospected, projected, expected
Mm-hmm.
of the male to be the leader and to take over bills, finances, and responsibilities, he only saw that out of his mom. What really are you going to get
Right.
beyond having a conversation in a accepting manner without feeling like it's badgering?
Right.
Because for any of us, male and female, once bagged into a corner, it's the hell with you and I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Or who you talking to like that? Or I'm not your child, or I'm an adult.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things come to play that can be fixed by the tone of the tongue,
Mm-hmm.
or they can be easily blocked, meaning after I came at you left the first time, it's you having a lot of flashbacks now of previous, so you ain't gonna really hear nothing that I'm saying after that, and
Right.
vice versa.
That's right. That I mean,
So
I'm so guilty of that one. Yes.
so with these things that we endure yet choose not to discuss or don't know how to discuss
Right.
becomes detrimental to what we're seeing in society, statistically and factually, as well as in the church.
Ooh. Ooh, Eddie, you laid it. You went in. You went in. I mean, I agree. So let's talk about this. So for me, I'll speak from my perspective and you share yours. So for me, I was married for a very long time, most of my young adult life. And so I got a divorce in 2013. And so after all that time, I look back over my life, and my entire life, from my perspective, was built around being my daughter's mother and being my husband's wife. So then when you no longer have that, how do you identify yourself, right? And then and for me, after that, I lost my mother about a year later, and or less. And so it was all this trauma. And I can honestly say that my mother passed in 2014. This is 2022. That's 8 years ago. I probably became whole in the last 2 years, and really identified with who I am as a person, and what does my new normal, my new life look like. And I maybe it was because due to the pandemic, and you can't interact with people. You were in the house. I had to really deal with me. And so that was my process. What does that look like for a man?
It looks the same, and please excuse me, I need to take a drink of water. It looks the same. Hold on one second.
Nice picture, by the way.
Thank you. So one thing that I think is not discussed at all or promoted. I think we all need divorce counseling.
Wow.
It's almost like an inmate being released and going to a re-entry program to be reacclimated with society, because when we are married, we think that we're still in the realm of outside, but outside has surpassed us so far that we only go back into the world to pick up from where we left off when we were single.
Wow, that's good, Eddie. Eddie, that's so good. Oh my goodness. And we don't think about, because it's a traumatic experience. It is a loss. You grieve.
So you have several. So in some form, and I'm not sure about these numbers, but I'll throw them out there. 90% of divorce experience some form of domestic violence. And let me clarify that domestic violence is not always physical. It's verbal, it's financial, and several many other emotional. So number one, understanding the different forms of domestic violence. Number two, understanding and recognizing, being able to identify the form in which you may have gone through, accepting and willing to get help. Help goes on both ends. He may have been verbal abusive because you being in general to the opposite, you were financial. It was a domestic situation that you were financially reckless, which caused him to be verbally disrespectful.
That's a good example. That's a very good example. Very good example. And I think and when we start to think and look at things from that perspective, and how each person in the relationship contributed to whatever, not justifying either infraction, but understanding how did you get there. That's how it's a saying that says, if you don't understand your past, you're doomed to repeat it. So you have to understand what you went through and why. How did you get there, so that you don't revisit that? And that speaks to you starting this out about generational curses?
And there goes a number of different things. So with that comes patience is a huge part of life, period. No matter how you choose to accept it, you're gonna have to deal with it by choice or by force.
Mm.
Um, and an example to the financial to what I just mentioned. If he was a street guy
Mm-hmm.
financially prior to marriage,
Mm. Come
and
on, make
and
it
he
plain.
and he agreed to rehabilitate himself and become a upstanding citizen um, once married, there has to be a patience and understanding to the sacrifice that's going to take place for her. Meaning, you just can't get and go when you choose and please, because for anybody that have ever participated or familiar with that environment, uh, that blow money and that W-2 money is two different kinds of money. So I mean, I'm not gonna hide no corners on this because it's reality. These are the realities that we choose not to talk about, and all that we're doing is creating and continuing generational curse. So with that, we go into the don't tell what go on in my house and this house and that kind of thing. So therefore, nobody's going to talk about when they are experiencing those forms of domestic violence in order to be assisted.
Wow. Mr. Eddie Bradford, founder of Building Bridges.
That's founding director of Bradford Mentoring and Consulting, and we strive on building bridges for a better future.
There it
That's
is.
our motto.
And I must say, Mr. Bradford, you dropped some heavy nuggets to help build some bridges for a better future in relationships, because in relationships they lead to marriages, and some not married, but they produce children, and children are our future. And so,
And they see
wow,
what we do.
yes,
And that's
less than they hear what we say, they see
I
what we
would
do.
I would love for you to introduce a topic on parenting, and I would love to be a part of that, because from 0 to 4, cursing is not cute,
It's not.
because it transitions to 10 to 14 and they cursing you out. So there's two things, and this goes back into the marriage and the home as well. If I'm a smoker and when my friends come over and my kids are around and I curse, they're going to have freedom and feel like it's okay to use profanity. If I smoke, they're going to feel like it's an open invitation. But if I use profanity outside of my home in an adult setting and not around my kids, I don't have to correct you when you're in my home to watch your language. See, we set the tone for certain things. Let's go back to this dating and you smoking again. See, insecurities come in different forms, and they are it takes a minute before they're recognized. So if smoking, if I offer to go outside and smoke in a designated area when visiting your home, or if you smoke and you offer to go into a designated area when visiting my home, as time goes along in this preliminary aspect of the relationship, when insecurity set in, it's raining outside and he or she goes to smoke and it's cold outside and you say, no, you can come on in and smoke right here. Well, guess what that looks like? That looks fine and well, but a number of things. A, you're being considerate. B, you're opening a door that you have to be careful about. C, there goes a little bit of insecurity because you taking your phone now. Well, I don't want to be smoking, talking to myself, and you don't like smoking. I can't smoke around you, vice versa. Now, when the rubber meets the road and there's a friction, and you always come in here smelling like smoke, or you always come in here smelling like liquor. I used to come over 12, 1 o'clock, and now you come in when you get ready. See, you can't start allowing something, and then when things not going well, you start blocking it. You might as well just say, hey, this ain't working. I'll see you later. Because you're introducing conflict. And it's obvious due to your repetitiveness, you don't have a clear sense of how to resolve conflict. So you have to be careful of the things that you invite and accept early on without discussion and sticking to it. Because when it gets on the backside, everything becomes a problem. See, it was introduced to me many years ago, and I'm not sure where or by whom, that little thin strand of hair that is in the sink, that's a drip of water. And that drip of water ain't gonna make or break. But that drip of water becomes a puddle when you don't get that thin strand of hair up.
Because it's blocking the kitchen.
You didn't kill it when it was small. You let it keep building. And it's still small. But because you didn't address it, now that small becomes major, and a simple conversation could have continued a long-lasting relationship. But bitterness set in due to, Now, the come multiple ways, because the comes with a reoccurrence of that old person who you blocked out and tried your best not to be in their space or environment or atmosphere, not knowing what it would bring. But when you not getting the same thing you used to get and you see that old person and you start to reminisce about, it can't be no worse. And you try it again. So during my ex-wife and I tried it again after 4 years of divorce. One thing that I discussed with her during that time that we were phasing back in is there's some things that we need to do that we didn't do before we married and only did when we were married. And there's some things that we need to accept that we've been divorced for 4 years and we are two totally different people than we last were together. And if we can't patiently go through this and accept it on both sides, then it's going to be a 360. So let's go back to premarital counseling. And when I accepted appreciation for being introduced to that, the pastor that did our counseling sessions also told us, I tapped on earlier, have you ever seen him mad or upset? He also said, you all have been together off and on for X amount of years. What was the problem? What happened? So we discussed those things, and one of us had an answer. And he said, if you all don't stop doing that, your life is going to be a 360, because one of you is, when something goes wrong, drop the ball, I'm tired, I'm out of here. And then you see he or she, and that same thing sparks you again, and there you go back again.
Mm-hmm.
You never resolve the last issue. So you'll only have that springtime until it falls in again.
Right.
Once it falls in again, then you be back on that 360. It's revolving doors constantly until it stops. So after that last time, when we tried to get back together, and I noticed some things. I'm sure she noticed some things that were different, but one thing that stuck out in my mind was the pastor was right. In 2008, 8 years ago, the pastor told us what was going to happen in 2016.
Mm-hmm. So Eddie, I just want to thank you for sharing your very intimate details about your relationship life. So what's one word of advice that you would like to share with the audience concerning relationships and how it'll help them with the destination loading slogan of evolving them from where they are right now to where they want to be when it pertains to relationships?
Learn how to pray and listen and wait on God. And the reason I say that is because oftentimes we want to do things our way. And that's not, and it doesn't always end positively. It ends leaving bad blood for no reason, or it ends with somebody being physically hurt as well as emotionally hurt. So something that I do is I ask God for direction and understanding. If I feel like something is taking a bad turn or is on a shaky path, I ask him if this relationship for me, and if it is, guide me and strengthen me to accepting. If it's not, allow it to end peacefully. Allow, I give it to you and put it in your hands that you know how to part these roads. But I can't get impatient with what I see over there and go ahead and rush this information, this situation over here to end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because A or B,
Mm-hmm.
he's gonna strengthen what I'm thinking about is time up and leaving, and he's gonna expose what we think is for us. And if I gotta get one thing, let's stop doing this when we're dating someone. Tell me about you. You don't need to know that in a conversation, because they're not going to remember
They're gonna show
everything to share with you.
you.
You allow time to show you what you need to see.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you tell a person your heavy likes and dislikes, guess what? If they do that, only thing they're going to do is lie to you, because they know you don't like it.
Right. Right.
And guess what? You screwed again.
Well, my friend, we gonna
Unless
take
it's
it.
onions. Unless
Huh?
it's onions. Now, if you don't like onions, just say, hey, I don't like onions, and so I stop or I eat onions. Be stern on something. But, for other things, just be like, just kind of wait it out and see. You mentioned, you find tactful, tasteful, respectful ways to deliver important parts as you would want to have them delivered according to your acceptance.
That's good. That's good. So you heard it here first. If you want to know how to build bridges for a better future and evolve from where you are to where you want to be, stay tuned. We're taking you there. We're taking you places with Destination Loading and Eddie Bradford from Building Bridges for a Better Future. Thank you, Mr. Bradford. You have an amazing day and a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.